Welcome to the lecture on Module 2, Fluid Statics. This module is covered in the textbook in sections 2.1, 2.3, 4, 5, 2.6.2 and 2.8. Okay. In this chapter, we are going to look at the description of the fluid behavior when it is at rest, and that's why we add the word statics to the title. It means the fluid is at rest. Okay. Now, towards the end of the last lecture, we saw what are the fluid descriptors that we use, like for example density, velocity and pressure. And I told you that a field description is used, that is a smooth function or a continuous function of density that is defined at every point in space and at time, is used to describe the amount of material at each point, that's density, the velocity of the molecules collectively, which is the velocity, and then the pressure at every point. Now you know the word pressure from your everyday life, like the pressure in your car tire, or the blood pressure of a human, or other instances, or atmospheric pressure. But we want to see what is a more accurate description of the word pressure and the concept of pressure. Okay, and that's what we are going to do this as we start this topic. Now, let's recall what is the definition of a fluid. A fluid is a substance that deforms continuously in response to applied shear. Okay, let's start with that definition. Once you say that it deforms continuously with respect to applied shear stress, what it also means is that a fluid cannot be at rest when subjected to shear stress. That is, if you have a layer of liquid, if you put your hand on it and try to shear it, there is no way the liquid can take that shear stress and still be at rest. That would make it not a liquid. So a fluid at rest when subjected to shear stress cannot be at rest, or in other words, I can also say this differently. A fluid at rest has no shear stresses present among or present in it. That is, if I have a beaker of liquid, and if this beaker of liquid is at rest, this container is not moving in any way, all you have is a liquid that is in here. What we have is a liquid that is at rest, which means the molecules are in motion and they don't have any shear stress present in them. Okay, so the first takeaway for a liquid at rest is that it doesn't support any shear, or it doesn't have any shear stress. Now what is the actual state of this fluid? Like, what are the molecules doing? I have this liquid. I'm going to draw like a bulk picture where it's like looking at it from far, where you see the liquid, the surface of the liquid and the liquid itself. Okay, and then I'll also draw, I can take any particular point in here and I'll draw an exploded view of a molecular picture. And what do I mean by that? If I take in an arbitrary volume, what I have in there is the fluid molecules are randomly jostling around. Okay, they have random velocities. Okay, they have random velocities, and because they have random velocities that nearly cancel each other, so the fluid molecules have random velocities that add up to approximately 0. That is, for every molecule that has a velocity in this direction, there is some other molecule whose velocity is in the exact opposite direction. so that they all add up to 0. So what I have here is, suppose I put my finger here. Suppose we put our finger, or in other words, a small surface at any orientation. So what I am saying is, I have this liquid, I take any particular point and I arbitrarily insert a surface here. Okay, I insert a surface here. What am I going to get? I am going to get this surface bombarded by molecules from all sides. Okay, molecules are going to collide with this, molecules are going to cross this surface from all sides, and if I put a real surface, they are going to bounce off of it. If I just draw an imaginary surface here, it's not a real surface, just a surface across which I am trying to see how many molecules cross that surface. Okay. To a next level, if I put a force probe, somehow I connect this to a gauge that reads the force experienced by the surface in newtons. Okay. What do you think I'll get? What do you think will be the force experienced by an arbitrary surface immersed in liquid? I told you that the molecules are all identical and that their velocities nearly cancel each other out. So on an average, if I look at this face, to this side, I'm going to get a certain number of impacts on the surface. From the other side, we are going to get nearly the same number of impacts or the same number of molecules bumping into that surface. So as on an average, the force experienced by an arbitrary surface at any angle or orientation, the force experienced by an arbitrary surface placed at any orientation is approximately the same in every direction. That is, what I mean by that is, I take this surface, I place it this way, you get a certain direction, you get a certain force in this direction. You get approximately the same force in the opposite direction. Now you can place this surface in another orientation, you get the force, and you get more or less the same force in the opposite direction also. On a whole, the force on this surface, the total force is approximately 0, or in other words, in every direction it experiences the same magnitude of force, so that you can say that this surface net force is 0. Okay, let's keep that in mind. That is, if you put your finger into a fluid that is at rest, you are going to experience the same force coming from every direction. Why? Because the molecules are all randomly moving, there is no preferred direction, and they impact you from any direction in the same way. Keep that in mind. Okay. Now let's think of one more idea. We have talked about the surface experiencing a force. Now, how much force does that surface experience? Obviously will scale with the size of the surface. Now suppose you put your finger in here, depending on the surface area of your finger, you will experience some force. If you put a very tiny insect in there, the insect is much smaller than your finger, so it will experience an even smaller force. And instead of your finger or an insect, if you put this marker here, this is bigger than your finger, so it will experience a larger force. So in other words, the force experienced by this arbitrary surface scales with the size or area of the surface. Larger the area, it will seem like the force is larger. So instead of thinking in terms of force, which is so subjective, it depends on the probe that you insert, it depends on what you put in there to feel the force. Instead of talking about the force, it's better to talk about the force normalized on the area, or normalized based on the area of the surface. So instead of the force experienced by the surface, let's talk about the force normalized over the area of the surface, and this is what is conventionally called the pressure at a point. Okay, that is, let's do this correctly. Here is your liquid or fluid. You immerse a surface here whose area is delta A. The force experienced by the surface at any orientation, let it be denoted by delta F. Okay, the surface has an area of delta A and experiences a force that is delta F. Okay, experiences a force delta F. What we define as pressure at a point, is really P is the ratio of the force over the area divided by the area over which it acts, in the limit that the surface is made infinitesimally small. In the limit that this surface is made smaller and smaller and smaller, such that it's really very, very tiny. It's tiny enough so that you can obtain a ratio that becomes like a derivative, in the sense of differential calculus. But the idea is, you don't have to worry about this part. The idea is pressure can be defined as the infinitesimal amount of force experienced by a surface, okay, divided by the area, or I'll just write in the limit of the surface being infinitesimally small. That is, in the limit that the surface is very, very small, it's the ratio of the force per unit area. That's what we define as pressure at a point. And we argued that it doesn't matter in what orientation you place the surface, the force experienced is still the same, because the molecules, they are all random in every way, that they don't care what is the orientation. Whatever is your orientation, they will come at the surface with almost the same velocity distribution, making this a scalar. That is, the pressure at a point does not depend on direction that makes it a scalar. Okay. So we just write, if you have a fluid, the pressure at a point, it may vary from point to point, but at a given point the pressure is a scalar. It's a single value, a single number, and we use the symbol P to denote it. Okay. Now, if you look at section 2.1 of the book, it presents a different argument for the same idea, for the same conclusion, which I ask you to read up. Okay. That is, the conclusion is the pressure at a point is a scalar. And I'll not keep saying pressure at a point. From here on, I'll just say pressure, and when I say pressure, it is implied that it is defined at a particular point. Like pressure acts at every point, and we are really referring to that. Okay. So that is about the idea of pressure and how it may change from point to point inside a liquid. Okay. So at any given point you might have a value of pressure, and this pressure is a scalar.